Now, there are numbers flying around everywhere when it comes to the elections in Africa's most populous country. Depending on who you ask, those numbers could mean different things. But there are some numbers that will definitely determine how the elections play out. I want to get deeper into those numbers and what they mean for the elections, the candidates, and particularly for Nigeria's democracy and Nigerians as we get deeper and deeper into the days ahead. My first guest on today's first episode of Election Central is Yemi Adamolekun. She's the executive director of Enough is Enough Nigeria, and EIE is known for being an organization active in citizen engagement, civic education, as well as promoting good governance in Nigeria. And they've been active since 2011, coming to the fore after two protests in 2010. But let me also remind you can join the conversation via social media. We are at News Central TV. Don't forget to use the hashtag Election Central as well to share your thoughts and your comments on all the conversations we're having. Yemi, welcome to Election Central. Thank you so much for being my first guest and for joining me tonight.
Sorry, thanks for having me. Super excited that I'm your first guest.
All right, so Yemi, let's get into the numbers, and that's what we promised to sort of break down, demystify, and really get around for a lot of people. And the first set of numbers is that of the registered voters that INEC has released. So INEC says that the final number of registered voters is 93,469,008. I wonder who those and eights people are. But in 2019, registered voters were just a little over 84 million. And INEC also said that in November, it actually did over 9.5 million new voters who were registered as well. So you see that we've seen a jump from the last election till now as to how many Nigerians are registered to vote. That's just under 10 million Nigerians. Is this anything special, or is this really just about the number of Nigerians who've turned 18 in the past few years?
Well, a lot of people think it is because it's large, and especially your 18 to 34 demographic, because they're the largest demographic. But the truth of the matter is we actually added more voters to the voters register between 2015 and 2019. So between 2015 and 2019, we added about 16 million, a little over 16 million voters to the voters register. And I guess, more people had gotten comfortable with the process, possibly. But I think for me, the difference is just that people thought that this 9 million is really a large number, but we had a much larger number between 2015 and 2019. But be that as it may, 9 million still is a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And in the context of would everybody be able to pick up their voter's card, that's another issue. So it's not just about those who register, but then are you then able to vote is the more important question.
It's interesting you mentioned those who are picking up their cards. If you're on social media in Nigeria, you'll see so much of a bit of complaints and criticism when it comes to the PVC collection. INEC is saying, come and get it. And people are saying, we're going to get it. And some people are being told their cards are not ready or some other story like that. But when you really look at it in terms of the collection as well, it's not just registered, but those who have their cards in hand, what numbers do you think we really should be paying attention to?
That's the number, really, the number of people who have their cards in hand. Because ultimately, those are the people who can vote, and that's where your numbers of who wins or who loses and by how much will play out. Anyone that doesn't have their card or chooses not to vote is not part of that conversation. So really the number, which is why PVC collection is such a hot button issue. And it's hard. I can understand why some people don't see it, because in their own area, there's not a crowd. So you go there, you stroll in, you get your card, or there are areas where nobody is actually going at all. So that gives one type of picture. And then the footage that you're showing right now shows a different type of picture where people are standing in line for 3 hours, 4 hours, and then being told that their cards are not ready or their cards cannot be found. And that gives a different narrative.
All right, so let's get a further breakdown of the numbers. You've mentioned, of course, that 18 to 39 demographic, very key. But if you look at elections around the world, they also happen to be the demographics sometimes that actually don't show up. It's more about talking about voting, but then not being there on voting day. So in the 93.4 million, we have 37 million. That's about 39.5% of them being young people between the ages of 18 and 34. The demographic is then followed very closely by those between the ages of 39 and 49, who account for 36.75% of registered voters, around 33.4 million. What do you think of the fact that Nigerians between 18 and 24 are the largest demographic? Is that telling us anything? And again, when you talk about the numbers, you talked about the larger number, of course, in one of the previous elections. Are we making too much of it, of this young demographic, 18 to 39, being those who are registered? Yet again, the difference between registered and actually holding their PVCs being noted.
Yeah. I mean, it's important. It's expected because, I mean, we haven't had a census since 2006. So first of all, the numbers are speculations. So we're starting with 2006 numbers and kind of projecting our population. So, so they are the largest, I think 18 to 35-year-olds are Nigeria's largest demographic period. So the fact that they're now the largest voting demographic is expected, let me put it that way. Now, people are also quite excited because this election, a lot more young people have, in a sense, come into their own. First of all, they've become 18, so they're legal to register to vote and participate in the process. And then secondly, there's also a large number of people who hadn't really paid much attention, but just because of the state of the nation. So people are, if you're not running away or leaving the country or just trying, or you are here, a lot more people. I mean, I love the footage you just showed of the young lady just smiling that she was able to get her PVC. So you also have a demographic like that who really want to engage. Look, we're in a democracy. The only way you can change who leads you in a democracy is by voting. As flawed as the process might be, as problematic as it might be, that's the only way. So you do have a generation that will be voting for the first time, that are engaged, either because they have a candidate that they like, Peter Obi has started off something, or they're just tired and want to express that tiredness through the ballot.
And you bring me to my next question, really, because when that focus is on the 18 to 39, 18 to 35, as it may be, we really have to ask what issues are going to bring them out. If you look at Brexit, I remember what happened with Brexit, and of course they were very vocal on social media, but when the day came and the breakdowns of the voters actually came as well, you found that young Britons, young UK citizens, whoever it may be, were actually at home when those who wanted to leave were voting. And it's replicated in many elections across the world, as well as across the continent, with a few standouts in recent times. But do you think this demographic really has an awareness of the issues that are going to bring them out to vote? Could anything even stand in their way of determining who becomes the next president? That's a massive number.
To be honest, I'm not quite sure this election is particularly issue-based, to be honest. I mean, the very general issues, corruption. I think corruption is a big one, especially for the two of the three leading candidates, or maybe four, or maybe five, before I get harassed that I only mentioned two. So there are 18 political parties, 18 candidates. We probably see about 5 or 6 of them actually campaigning. There are quite a number of them that I have not seen a poster, haven't heard them say peep since this whole process started. So I really don't consider them that they are serious. So, but the ones that have dominated the airwaves are really about broad issues, corruption being a big one, health being another one. So corruption, health are two major ones that are sort of issues that are being talked about. But they're much larger issues. The issues of fuel subsidy, the issues of tertiary education. Universities were shut for 8 months last year. The issues of the economy and what would that look like. I don't hear a lot of conversations around that and people saying I will vote for A because of this issue-based dynamic. It's more, I think, especially for a lot of young people that I've engaged with, it's more, I'm going this way because I'm tired of the old. I'm tired of the same people and I just don't want to see them. And I'm willing to bet to take a bet on somebody new. Or someone who would say track record of prudence, a track record of lack of fanfare, as a friend of mine said it, a different type of culture, I guess, that Peter Obi, I mean, let me not be cautious about names. It is what it is. Peter Obi presents a different type of culture that young people think works for them, as opposed to Atiku and your Tinubu that are older, been around the scene for decades. Thank you. And then the 4, yeah, I like the 4 that you had on. Then Kwakwanso, for a lot of people in southern Nigeria, doesn't really fit on their radar because he's not someone that they know very well. So the dynamics are there in terms of the choices that people are making. And then also let's not be shy about saying that ethnicity is also a pseudo big part. You are looking at, if you talk about the 3 candidates, it's what we're calling Wazobia. Atiku being the northern one, Peter Obi being east, Asiwaju being west, Kwakwanso being north as well, and kind of splitting votes, as people would say. So you have that as well. And then also there's religion. Peter Obi being the only Christian candidate. Muslim tickets that APC is fronting with Asiwaju has a lot of people who are just not even engaging it at all. And then obviously that those who just want to vote for someone who is of their own faith. So I think you have a lot of these issues and we shouldn't shy away from that. If we're talking about expecting, there's a demographic that might make very nuanced decisions in terms of what does this candidate stand for? What have they said about the economy? Are they going to remove fuel subsidy? Are they going to privatize this? Are they going to do that? But for a lot of people, it's just more sort of base human instinct of, I don't want this, I prefer this, and I don't necessarily need to give you a reason why. It's my vote, and that's how I want to use it.
So this conversation around those sort of demographics and the numbers, it takes me to my next question, which is about the registered voters versus the number of those who actually turn out to vote on election day. And we've talked about that, but there are some numbers we can look at to sort of have a projection. So if we go by the trend in Nigeria's 3 previous elections, the expectation would likely be a less than 50% voter turnout. In 2011, out of 73.5 million registered voters, turnout was 53.68%. It has gone downhill since then. In 2015, it was 67.4 million voters with a 43.65% voter turnout. And in 2019, it was 84 million with a turnout of 35.66%. Do you think 2023 will be the year that that trend is reversed and bucked? What factors do you even think could affect turnout for this elections coming up?
So 2 things, you're quite right. Our voter turnout hasn't been very great because there's also an innate disbelief in the process that people don't believe that their votes will count. So the point is, why do I want to stand outside for an hour, 2 hours in the sun, and then my vote doesn't count? But with the Electoral Act that was passed last year, there's a different kind of conversation with people getting excited about the fact that results will be electronically transmitted. So the whole issue of adjusting results, issues of overvoting that can cancel results in a polling unit. And one of my favorite amendments is the fact that returning officers once they declare the result, the only way you can reverse that is in court. So politicians would always gamble and put returning officers. We've had several stories of people being put under duress, being put under pressure, being, in a sense, literally abducted from the room and forced, quote unquote, to declare a result. Because politicians knew that once that was declared and they were declared the winner, it's only in the court that you can reverse that. But with the new Electoral Act, INEC actually has the power to reverse the results or reverse the declaration if the returning officer says, I was under duress. This is not what I wanted to say. So I think for me, that's really, really very significant. So back to the factors. 1, electronic transmission of results, which is giving people a lot of confidence. It reminds me of the FCT elections, for example. There was some controversy and the Minister of State arrived at the venue and she said, well, since the machine doesn't seem to be working, why don't we resort to manual counting? And people said no, that they are ready to wait. Whatever it takes for us to do the electronic process, we will wait. And that for me was very encouraging because it showed that people believed, at least in that part of the process, and they were ready to sacrifice time to go through that route. That's one. Secondly, is what we started with, PVC collection. The law right now says without your PVC, you can't vote. So unless we can change the law between now and February 25th, that allows you, you kind of mentioned it in the court case, the headline news, that allows people to vote with their temporary slips or or if you can show that you're in INEC's database. So maybe you get a screenshot of it and then you have another government ID and you show up. Because verification is electronic. That's another thing I didn't mention. In terms of confidence in the system, the fact that the law says you must be verified electronically. And that's either with facial recognition or your fingerprints. So again, you can't vote multiple times because you can only be verified once. So if we can actually show up at the polling unit with government ID that shows I'm Nigerian, plus a screenshot from the voters database of INEC that shows that I'm there, and then I'm verified with my fingerprints or my face, then I don't need my card.
Okay.
So if that then happens, that would help significantly because all this going to INEC's office 5 times, 6 times, 10 times would relieve a lot of people.
All
and
right.
then violence. I mean, we haven't spoken about that, but that's certainly something that would play a significant part in some parts of the country.
And I think the issue around election violence and security is a whole conversation on its own, especially given some of the burnings of INEC offices we've seen in recent times in certain regions of Nigeria. Yemi, we'll have to end the conversation here because of time, but we've started a very important conversation, sharing the dates and, of course, the information around Nigeria's elections, 93.4 million voters, and a lot of other numbers that will come out. But I'll say a very big thank you to you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
All right. And the elections are literally just 37 days away, and you can see behind me a number of dates that you need to take into cognizance as Nigerians vote. There are separate elections for the Presidential and National Assembly, and then as well for the governorship and state houses of assembly. Election Central will be your #1 location and spot to ensure that you get all the details, the developments, the updates, and the facts and the figures of the elections. Don't forget to use the hashtag Election Central, and that will be coming your way on 6:30 p.m. West African time right here on News Central.